How's it going? Today we're going to be comparing a couple different 21700 size flashlights. So on the left here we have the ThruNite TT20. All right. Next we have the Olight. This is the M2R Pro. All right. Then we have the Fenix. This is the PD36R. And finally we have the Nitecore P10i. All right. So the one thing all these lights have in common is that they're running on a single 21700 lithium ion battery. So all these lights compete together in the same category. So the very first thing I want to compare here is the price. I think the price is the most important factor when looking to buy a new flashlight. People generally look at the price of different things and they stay within a certain budget. All right, so from left to right, the ThruNite, and these prices, by the way, are the cheapest prices that I can find on Amazon, which is a very common place that people purchase flashlights. So that's where I'm getting my pricing here. Obviously, pricing is going to differ depending on when you see this video, as well as where you shop, okay? But the cheapest prices I can find on the ThruNite TT20 is $59.91 on Amazon. The plain black Olight M2R Pro I found as cheap as $96.96. The Fenix PD36R, the cheapest price I found for that was $99.95. And finally, the Nitecore P10i, the cheapest price I could find was $79.95. All right. So the cheapest on the list here is the ThruNite TT20, followed by the Nitecore P10i. Then the third cheapest would be the M2R Pro, and then the most expensive is the Fenix PD36R. So the lightest flashlight here is the Fenix, all right, at 2.9 ounces, and the heaviest is the Olight at 6.3 ounces. So to me, the next most important factor besides price, of course, is its output, its highest output. Now, all these lights have multiple functions, which we're going to go over in a minute here, but just to get to the highest outputs, the ThruNite TT20, its highest output is 2526 lumens, which is extremely impressive. The Olight here pumps out 1800 lumens, also no slouch, very bright light. All right, the Fenix is 1600 lumens, all right, on high, which is there. And then the Nitecore here is also 1800 lumens. All right, so the brightest light here is the ThruNite TT20, and the least bright light is the Fenix, all right, PD36R. So it's also interesting that this is the least bright and also most expensive in comparison. Now, as we said earlier, all four of these lights are running on 21700 lithium ion batteries, but what gives them their output is really those LEDs, all right? So if we look at the business end real quick on these, first we have the ThruNite. The ThruNite LED on this TT20 is an SST70 LED. That's what's allowing that 2500 and 2600 lumens. All right, next we have the Olight. All right, the LED on this Olight is an XHP35HI, and again, the high output is 1800 lumens. All right, next we have the Fenix here, the PD36R. The LED on here is an SST40, and it's allowing 1600 lumens. And then finally on the Nitecore, this is an SST40W, and this is allowing 1800 lumens. Now, all four of these flashlights are really considered tactical style flashlights. They have similar design features, although the Nitecore stands out quite a bit compared to these three. These three are more comparable to each other. All four have some sort of crenulated bezel, okay, for striking. So if you look at the front end here, they all have some kind of striking type bezel, although they all have different designs. All right, the ThruNite here has kind of a wavy design. The Olight has these individual little posts. The Fenix also has a similar wavy design as the ThruNite, and then we have kind of three little wings here on the Nitecore. If you also notice, all three of these flashlights, all right, the ThruNite, the Olight, and the Fenix, they all have bi-directional pocket clips, okay, which means that the pocket clips can be used, you know, with this end, or you can use this end, which is very nice. Again, it just gives you a lot more options. Whereas the Nitecore does not, even though the back end looks like it could be used for bi-directional, it really is designed for one way, all right? Something else I noticed is that all three of these have a side switch, okay? So we have a mode switch on the side. The Nitecore does not have a side switch. Their mode switch is on the tail cap here. Okay, so that is also a little bit different from the other three lights. So again, even though these all look very similar, they actually work quite differently. So I want to go over the UIs of each light, okay, or the user interface. So first we have the ThruNite TT20. Okay, we have a side button and we also have a tail switch. The tail switch is the tactical switch. So basically anytime you grab the light, just click it on and you have a very high output. All right, you can also do momentary on by just doing a half press. So it will go off as soon as you let go of it. But this is just a quick acquisition, get the light, turn on, you know, it's super bright. If you want to mess with the different modes, that's when you use the side switch. Okay, so in the off position, if you do a long hold, you'll have that lowest moonlight mode. All right. If you just click it once, this is where you can change the different modes by pushing and holding it in because it will ramp. Instead of, you know, switching between different preset modes, it will ramp up and down. So pushing and holding, you can see it's ramping down. Now it's at its lowest, that's why it's blinking. So push and hold again, and it'll ramp all the way up. So at any point you can let go and it'll stay that position, and it blinks when it gets to its highest position as well. So we have a continuous ramping up or down, and again, just let go at any point in time. It does have mode memory, so when you turn it back on, it'll stay in that mode. All right, so you can get the perfect light output that you're looking for. All right, at any point in time, you could do 3 clicks for strobe. There you go. Very simple UI, and just a ton of different options with that ramping function. Instead of having presets, you basically have, you know, dozens of different light outputs depending on where you let that stop. So next we have the Olight, the Olight Pro Warrior. All right, this also has a tail switch. All right, so you push that on, and when you let go, you can see that it shuts off. Okay, if you do a quick push, that's when it stays on. So pushing and holding is going to be your momentary. All right, if you want constant on, just push once quickly. All right, then it'll stay constant on. All right, same deal. We have a side switch here. All right, if you push and hold the side switch, we have our moonlight mode, which is a little bit on the brighter side. Pros of that compared to the ThruNite is it's going to be a little bit brighter, obviously, but the cons is going to have less of a run time. All right, so if you just push it once to turn on, push and hold. This is the more traditional, you know, swapping through the different preset modes. All right, so you're low, medium, high, and then turbo. Right. Same thing with the side switch, 3 times, and we have our strobe. Okay. So similar UI, but not exactly the same. The switches are very different. This has kind of a metal switch on the bottom. These also have wings. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later as far as tail standing, because that's a big deal for me and something I look into when I look at flashlights. Now the Phoenix is very different in how it works. We have a side switch and a tail switch. All right, the tail switch, if you want momentary on, it's just a half press in. All right, click it in for constant on. But you can't use the side switch on its own. Nothing happens when you push it. You have to turn the light on back here. Then you can switch to the side switch to change the modes. Now this also works differently than the other lights in that if I just click it once, it'll change between the modes. You're just going to press it once. So you have like low, medium, another medium, high, right, turbo. And that's how it's going to cycle through. Now how to get to the strobe on here is a little bit different as well. So once the light's on, you're going to push and hold this in. And that's where we get our strobe. Now if I leave the strobe going, you can see it does change the strobe impulse. Okay, so how fast that's going, it's really, really fast, and it slows down a little bit, then it goes really fast. All right, so it's a little disorientating. But I can't shut it off on the side switch. All I'm doing is changing the modes again. You have to push the tail switch here to actually shut the light off. That's something I often forget with this because it's a little less common. All right, so the Nitecore is also very different. Again, we don't have the side switch here. We have a large tail switch, and then we have a flat recessed tail switch. Okay, well I shouldn't say recessed. It's pretty much even with the butt of the light here. Okay, so this is really interesting. If you hit the large flat switch here, it's going to be momentary strobe. Okay, so you push it, it's strobe. All right, and if you let go of it, it shuts off. Now the large tail switch is our regular switch to turn on and off. If you do a half press, it's momentary. You click it in, it's all the way on. Now, interestingly enough, the side switch here that was our strobe when it was off is our mode select button. So you just click it to cycle through the modes, high, medium, low. At any point in time, if you push and hold it, then we have our constant strobe. Okay, so you can let go of that if you want. Click it again, and then click the large switch to shut it off. So these lights do have some different UIs. You know, as far as pros and cons, it really just depends on, you know, your style of flashlight, what you're looking for in a flashlight. The Nitecore here is very, very different. I like the fact that you do have a quick access to that strobe, okay? I don't know how often you're using strobe, but if you needed to, it's just nice that you have that option. The Fenix here, I don't like the fact that in order to use the different modes, you have to turn it on back here first. Then you go over and you switch to different modes. I think that's pretty inconvenient as far as, you know, accessibility, so I don't like that at all. The Olight's fine, it's kind of in the middle. And then the ThruNite it's just really easy. I'm very familiar with their UIs, all right? Everything just kind of makes sense. So before I was mentioning tail standing. Now, what is tail standing? Tail standing is when you take your flashlight and you're able to turn it on and you're able to put it on a table upright, okay? The idea behind this is that if you have a power outage, it will light up an entire room, especially if it's a very bright flashlight. This is something that's important to me because I like all my flashlights to be able to be used in emergency. All right, as you can see here, the ThruNite TT20, this has these little wings on the back, okay? So that means that the button itself is recessed. This is not only great for tail standing because the tail stands very nicely, but it's also great because it's harder to accidentally push that button. You don't want your flashlight to turn on accident, right? So because that's recessed, anytime that it's pushing a flat surface, it's not going to accidentally turn on, all right? That's a very good thing. Now we're talking about the Olight here. The Olight has just kind of an exposed back. There are these little metal pieces here, these three kind of protrusions. That makes it a little bit more recessed, all right? So if you're on a flat surface, it's not gonna accidentally turn on either. But as far as tail standing, it does tail stand. Does an okay job. I think the ThruNite stands a little bit easier as far as tipping. Maybe a little bit less likely to tip over, but it does tail stand, which is a very good thing. Moving on to the Fenix here. The Fenix, you can see, has these little wings, but unfortunately the button is past those wings. All right, so if you push this down on a table, it will momentarily go on. You know, in that case, it had the strobe. And it doesn't tail stand, okay? So that's not a good thing for me. I don't like the fact that it won't tail stand and that you can accidentally bump that. If it's leaning on something like a pack or something like that, it might stay on and kill your battery. All right, not the worst thing in the world, but definitely not as good a design as those two. And then finally we get to the Nitecore here, which has no wings, and that button is just sitting out in the wind. So if it gets bumped on something, it will very much turn on and stay on. And in the same respect, it will not tail stand either because of that button. All right, so I do really like the ThruNite and the Olight because they can not only tail stand, but they're gonna be less likely to get bumped and turn on in a pack or in a bag or something like that where you're gonna lose all your power, okay? So just something to point out there. It's important to me with the tail standing. That's something that I always look for in a tactical flashlight that I wanna be able to use in an emergency as well. So there it is, the ThruNite TT20. We have the Olight M2R Pro Warrior. We have the Fenix PD36R and the Nitecore P10i. I think they all four of them are fantastic options if you're looking for a 21-700 size tactical flashlight. But my preference would definitely go towards the ThruNite first and then the Olight second. These two, again, it's a little bit of a toss-up for me. They both have some downsides compared to these lights, but you know, push come to shove, I would definitely pick the ThruNite just because it is the cheapest by far. So it's kind of a no-brainer in that sense, but if you have a preference for certain features, that's why you may or may not choose these other flashlights. So that's it for now, guys. Thanks for watching.